Another considerably large story that came up yesterday, which is a symbolic piece related to the gun violence. A priest was grazed in his head near St. Ignatius. St. Ignatius is what, 3 blocks from the FBI? Speaking of that?
Yeah, it's close. Right down the street, right on Roosevelt Road.
Found a couple of people trying to steal a catalytic converter. Lucky he wasn't killed or injured even worse. It all brings up this question. Not that the priest was packing, but we've had some stories lately about conceal and carry. Is that the best option for self-defense, or is it actually a threat to others, and how do cops feel about it? And Gary McCarthy joins us now. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Steve. How are you? Hey, Jane.
Hi.
I'm doing all right. This missing kids thing is just heartbreaking. And, you guys, at the highest levels had to be beating your head against the wall when stuff like this came up because, well, what do you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, both heartbreaking stories. But at the end of the day, concealed carry, I say this all the time. I hate to beat a dead horse, but the right is too far right and the left is too far left.
Yep.
And we have to put the Second Amendment in perspective. I'm sorry, I'm just finishing my workout. That was written for a well-regulated militia, and it was in regards to a single-shot, smoothbore flintlock that probably would fire 4 out of 10 times that you pull the trigger.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in reference to mini Uzis with 100-round magazines.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, the right to bear arms. I've always said, how come they don't sell hand grenades over the counter at Walmart?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not practical, right? But, I want to buy a tank and I want to put it on my driveway. What's to stop me from doing that based upon the Second Amendment and the interpretation that's being made today? Now, having said that, I was raised with guns. Obviously, I've been a police officer for a very long time, and I've been carrying a gun the whole time. My biggest concern is training. And I forget if the training course is 16 hours, I believe, in Illinois. That's not long enough to learn how a gun works, let alone when you could use it, and to become proficient with it all at the same time. More people get killed with their own guns in this country than ever gets reported. And, we need to kind of have a rational conversation about this stuff.
Well, that's the problem. As soon as guns, I mean, I'm a Second Amendment guy, but as soon as guns come up, nobody's rational. And everybody goes, we're coming to take my guns. And the point I make all the time to people is Congress can't tell you the sky is blue. They're not coming to take your gun.
Right.
In the meantime, a CCL holder shot 3 men while being attacked outside a Belmont Cragen home. I mean, we do see stories where concealed carry holders are able to defend themselves, but from what I hear from you, that's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, I would say it's the exception, not the rule. And I don't disagree. But, we've got to get back to the middle of the road somehow. Just look at what's happening today in the news, where now the president is deciding to take an executive order on the border, which people have been telling them to do for 3 years. And now the Republicans are going to block it.
It's insane.
The insanity is overwhelming. So, the right to bear arms, I respect the Second Amendment, but the interpretation of it and this thing about they're coming to take our guns, it's just insane. But that's NRA rhetoric, which is now, if you say it 3 times, it becomes true. And they've been saying it for decades. And I remember when I was a kid, the NRA was about gun safety. I was an NRA member. My dad, we had a Boy Scout troop in the Bronx, believe it or not. And
that's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? A Boy Scout troop in the Bronx?
Yeah. But we also had a rifle team. You got to realize that.
Okay.
And my dad, being a retired Marine and police officer, he was our range master. And I've been shooting since I was 3 years old. And the NRA was all about gun safety. It wasn't about, years ago, it really dawned on me that what was happening in this country, the NRA gets their money from the gun manufacturers, and the gun manufacturers are making billions of dollars with a B by the NRA preventing stricter gun laws. Why is it that law enforcement can't share information about people who are buying guns?
I mean, the whole database thing, the whole ability to collect research for studies on this so you have more knowledge, the technological side of it to be able to be more technologically adept at keeping guns out of the hands of bad guys, all of that is ultimately agreed upon by the majority of gun owners and never acted upon by politicians. So when it comes to cops, less people with guns is a better thing if you want to stay safe and cops have to protect you. What do cops do about CCL holders?
Yeah, well, it becomes a very confusing world. That's why one of the things that happens frequently, I lost a friend of mine back in New York, a guy I played football with, an off-duty cop who got jumped. He went out after a 4 to 12. He ended up going out having a couple of drinks, and he ended up getting jumped in a White Castle parking lot by 6 guys. He's holding one guy down at gunpoint when the cops respond to the dispute, and they end up shooting him and killing him. He lingered for 13 days. It was horrible.
Wow.
You imagine being those on-duty cops who shot an off-duty cop, not realizing that he was a cop.
Right.
And having to live with that for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
Yeah. So picture the CCL holders who aren't trained to the level that police officers are, who know how to identify themselves and what to say when these things are happening. It's a dangerous world when we just keep putting more guns out there, quite frankly.
Gary, when you say 16 hours isn't enough, can you tell us how many hours does an officer put in with his sidearm before he's technically qualified to be on the beat with a sidearm?
Well, it starts with 40 hours of training in the police academy.
Okay.
And different departments across the country have different standards. When I got to Chicago, I added a third training cycle for firearms. So these officers are qualifying 3 times a year. At least they were when I was here. Or maybe, no, it went from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. I don't remember at this point.
But at least 40, minimum 40.
40 just to get out the door of the police academy. And then after that, you have to qualify every single year. So, CCL holders, they get their gun and that's it. They're done.
Well, it comes down to
they should go back to like you said, is education, it's training, it's the responsibility
and
of
it's
the
reps.
owner.
It's reps. It's continuing education. It's
go
continuing
back
certification.
every year and get that certified.
100%.
Like your doctors have to do it, nurses have to do it.
Teachers.
Yeah.
Even lawyers. I know that because of my wife.
Right.
And it's a perishable skill. People think that once you learn how to shoot, that's it, you're good. No, absolutely not. It's a perishable skill, and if you don't keep up on it, you lose that ability. Trust me, I figured that out when I was retired from policing for a couple of years, and I had it's called an IROC, Illinois Retired Officers Concealed Carry, and I only had to qualify once a year. And I'm shooting like garbage, quite frankly, compared to the way that I used to shoot. So I figured that out. Everybody else needs to know that, and somebody has to take steps to bring some sanity to this conversation.
Well, there's the upside to an election year. The upside to an election year is if you are the majority of gun owners in this country and you do believe you need politicians who respect the Second Amendment but also want it to be instituted in a sensible way, if you want people to be prosecuted for the gun laws that are out there, and if you want stronger gun laws and common sense stuff like cops being able to talk to other cops, well, then vote for people who are going to do that. And vote out the ones that don't.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't vote around here. If we get a 30% turnout, that's like a good election.
And it's not.
No.
We don't allow it. Anyway, thank you, Gary, as always.
Always a pleasure, guys.
There you go.
Have a
Gary
great
McCarthy,
workout.
former Chicago police superintendent, just finishing his workout. Doing his thing now in Willow Spring, and the people of Willow Springs are lucky to have him.
They are. And for the record, just so you know, the NRA still has a program in place. It's called the Eddie Eagle program, where they do go out and they do go out and they teach gun safety.
That's great.
And they start with young kids.
But here's the thing. Like he said, he started at 3. I remember shooting at 6 or 7 probably, and there was a gun club where you'd shoot clay pigeons and we'd take them to. And by the way, don't stand too close to the arm. I did. It hurts.
When they throw it?
When I'm a little kid, yeah. But you as a dad of 2 boys who I'm sure are going to be interested in it starts at home. Responsible gun ownership starts at home. Training starts at home. Safely storing your weapons starts at home. Be a responsible grown-up. So,
Absolutely.
But what concerns me the most, and this is just a whole different thing, is the illegal guns. You're a responsible gun owner. You're educated. You keep up your training, and then all of a sudden there's somebody that's maybe come into your home and that has a illegal gun or whatever the case may be.
listen, illegal guns in this city, I consider a Pritzker failure as much as I consider it a failure of every governor prior to that is built to this state and built to this point. I have said forever, Pritzker needs to hold a public summit and demand governors from surrounding states, specifically Indiana and Mississippi, sit there with him and say, we're going to shut it down.
Because that's the pipeline.
That's right.